Hello, everyone. As you know, I'm Rachel from the Military Mom Collective. I'm so happy you're here today. And I am so happy to be here today with Diana Loader. She is our newest feature for our Still Serving campaign with the VFW. Hi, Diana.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Of course, I was so excited. Actually, if you guys have never met or heard of Diana before, she contacted me, which is great because I love when people contact me and say that they want to help and they want to talk to us. But before I dive into how I got introduced to you, why don't you tell me a little bit about you and your family? And if you want to say where you are right now, go ahead, but I'll let you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Diana Loader, as she said. I am a veteran now and a stay at home mom. My husband is still active duty in the Air Force. That's actually how we met. And we have two boys. We have a 13, soon to be 13-year-old, and 11-year-old. We have been stationed here in North Carolina for almost 6 years, but we spent the first part of both of our careers in Idaho, almost a decade, which is unheard of. But
Wow.
I'm sure Rachel's probably going to ask some questions about that later, why we got stuck there. But those are the two places we've been together as a family, and we are really loving and enjoying our time here in North Carolina.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm totally gonna ask because one, I was just in Idaho for a college visit with my daughter because I have a senior. But
Oh,
two, so I'm guessing you guys were at Mountain Home probably.
yep, Mountain Home Air Force Base. Yep.
Yeah, and how did you get? I don't want to say stuck because people like Idaho. So
I
like,
know.
how, how were you
It
there
is
for so
a
long?
beautiful state. Do
It
not
is.
get me wrong. It is absolutely a gorgeous state. But if you've never been stationed in Mountain Home, Idaho, Mountain Home is not Idaho.
Yeah.
Mountain Home is a desert in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere. And so it's a little tough to be stationed there if you're not super outdoorsy, if you don't enjoy being outside, if you can't kind of roll with the punches and just learn to enjoy your base and everything. And so my husband and I are both of the same mind frame. So it wasn't a big deal for us, but whew, I know a lot of people that were not excited to be there.
Yeah.
But so a lot of medical issues. Not sure if a lot of people are familiar with the special programs that are in the Air Force and things like that. We are part of the EFMP program. All of us, all of my husband's
Okay.
dependents, bless his heart. So that's actually how I ended up out of the military. A lot of serious medical issues. And the military wants you to be fit to fight, and completely
Yeah.
understandable. They want you to be ready to deploy, and that is not me. I am not that person. So I am serving now in a different capacity as a veteran and at home for my kids and everything. But that's how we got there for 8 years. Was the military is really good about that. We're not going to move you to 8 million places when your family's in the midst of dealing with things. And so being enrolled in the program allows us to be consistent in one place and get consistent long-term care. And so for me, for both of my sons who both have medical issues, it was nice to be in one place for a consistent amount of time. And then here too, we're probably, honestly, if nothing else goes wrong, we're probably going to end up retiring out of here. They're probably not going to move us from North Carolina either.
That's really interesting because I'm my husband's Air Force. I'm familiar with the FMP. My daughter was in it for a short time and is still technically in it, but we don't really use it that much. But I didn't know that they could do that because
Yes.
and that's amazing because you're right. That's a really great benefit to have consistency.
Like, that's not what either me or my husband joined the Air Force to do. You always dream of going to all the exotic places and going to see everything. Idaho was on neither of our dream sheets, but
No?
that's where Air Force sends you.
Yeah.
And so being there and then being there for long term and then being there for reasons we didn't see, coming in the future, it just allowed us to have consistent doctors, consistent nurses, just a consistency of care that you don't necessarily see if you didn't have a program like that allowed your family to stay in one place and just get everything that they needed versus hopping from base to base.
Yeah. Well, let's dive in then. Did you and your husband meet in Idaho?
No, we
Oh,
are the typical Air Force story or military story. We met, engaged, and married in 6 weeks.
wow. Yeah.
Never knew each other. Different parts of the country. We met in hot training when we were both
Okay.
training to be crew chiefs. That's what both
Oh,
of our
okay.
jobs were. And so he always says he saw me from across the field
And that was
and
it.
he knew I was the one. And so, yeah, it was whirlwind is not the word. Like, he told me he loved me within 2 weeks. He had a
Ooh.
ring bought within 4, and we were married 2 weeks after that.
Wow. Yeah, that is I don't want to say it's like typical, but it is kind of like a
It is.
typical.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it is.
I would never, and my husband and I preach this to all of the new kids that he has now. It's weird to say kids, but they are compared to us.
Yeah.
Don't do it our way. don't be crazy. We are the exception. We are not the rule. Do
Oh my
not follow in
gosh.
our footsteps.
So because you guys were married, is that the reason that you both got stationed
Yes.
together? Yeah.
So
Okay.
he was originally going to Lakenheath, I believe, in England, if
Okay.
people aren't familiar with that. And I was going to Vegas. I was
Oh,
going to Nevada. And then everything changes once you get married. They
yeah.
have to find a spot for both of you, especially if you're both doing the same job. And
Yeah.
so Idaho was it.
Yeah. Wow. So I am not, so my husband is non flying in the Air Force. So did you guys work together as crew chiefs, like
So
within the
no,
same? Okay.
so the rules are very clear about that kind of thing. I love the military for that because you think about it. You're both in at the same rank, you're both in at the same
Mhm.
time, and so they try to make sure that you both retain some kind of military professionalism. And
Okay.
so you are not allowed to be in the same unit together. And so we were down the street from each other, but doing the same job on the flight line. So
Gotcha.
we would initially, before kids, we would literally have the same work schedule and we would see each other on the flight line and stuff. But nope, he worked down in one unit and I worked in another. And then, once we had kids and everything, that changed things too, because now we have to adjust our schedules for that. And so it was, it was interesting the first few years of our marriage, trying to work through the ins and outs of being married and then parents and
Oh
schedules
yeah.
and all that.
No. So I'm a little familiar with what crew chiefs do, but can you tell us a little bit, just
Yeah.
for people that don't know?
So we are, I don't want to say the backbone because that's not fair to all the other services that bust their butt on the flight line.
You can
But
say it.
we fix the jets. We're out there getting dirty and grimy and underneath and inside sometimes the jets to get them up in the air safely for the pilots. And so a lot of long hours, a lot of dirty uniforms and dirty boots, and
Yeah.
I love it. Every time I hear a jet fly, I long for those days of the jet noise and everything. But yeah, we're out there crewing every day, making sure the jets get up in the air.
No, it is a really important job. I know a few people that are, and their hours are insane, but they really,
Whew,
really love
yes.
what they do, which is kind of awesome.
You can't not. Like it's I don't know, you feel like you're actually doing something for the mission. Like
Yeah.
it was very difficult because you're not obviously allowed to keep doing that when you're pregnant.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I imagine not.
You're in the back office and doing a different job for the safety of you and your baby, and so you just miss it, man. And you're complaining about it every day, and then the second you're not doing it, you're just like, I'm so bored.
I feel like that's just adulthood. It
Oh
doesn't
my
matter
gosh,
what it
yes.
is. Yeah. So did you go into basic knowing that this is what you wanted to do, or how did you get into it?
No,
Okay. Yeah.
ma'am. My husband, yes, he signed up for this in his recruiter's office. He knew exactly what job he was going to do, and
Yeah.
he loves it. He can't imagine doing anything else. No, I wanted to get out of my very tiny small town, and I would take any job that they offered me to get out of my tiny town.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if a lot of people are familiar, but the maintenance career fields in the military are, I would say, pretty similar to the civilian force. It's tough keeping people in because, like you said, the long hours.
Yeah.
It can be very tedious sometimes, and so they always need people. I guarantee you, if you and I Googled what are the shortages in the Air Force, crew chief or aircraft maintenance would be on that list.
Oh yeah, and I mean it's always going to be in demand
Oh yeah,
because I mean we're not going to stop flying airplanes anytime
No, ma'am.
soon. So
No, ma'am.
okay. Yeah. I just find that interesting. Usually, whenever you talk to people, it's very rare that they go into basic knowing what job they want, they get that job, and they
I
still love
know.
it. It's
Thank
usually
you.
like,
This is not what I signed up.
yeah, but that's great though. I think that's awesome. And I'm gonna guess that that isn't a super female dominated field either.
No. So in
Yeah.
my time in the Air Force and on the flight line, I ran into 3
Wow, only 3.
versus the hundreds of men that you see in the
Yeah,
career
maintenance
field.
squadrons are huge.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're massively huge.
Yeah.
And so, nope, it wasn't even all in my unit either. We just all knew each other.
Yeah, because you're the only woman. Yeah,
Thank
that makes
you.
sense.
And so there was 2 in my husband's unit. There was me and another woman that worked together. We're actually still really good friends, even
Mhm.
though she is not in anymore either. Hi, Chelsea. She is an amazing woman, and yeah, it makes for a very small community among us. The men are, I would say, 50-50. They're very open. I would say probably more than the original allowing women into this kind
Yeah.
of career field. But you still have those old world thoughts, and so it can make it tough. But having other women and seeing other women in the career field made it a lot easier.
That's good. I always kind of like hearing that. I know it's still kind of a little bit of a challenge, but at least it's getting better. We can say
Oh,
that.
definitely. I would definitely say it is seeing where my husband is at now in a supervisory role and hearing him, handle his people and everything like that, and hearing him speak about so many women. I'm just like, where was that in my time?
You know, it's just I tell my kids all the time, you hope that you raise a better generation and then you hope that they raise a better generation after that, and that's all you can really hope for. So
Oh, definitely.
you were just pioneering something without even realizing you were doing it,
I
which is
am very
awesome.
excited to see a lot more women in these types of career fields. I know that they can do it too,
Yeah.
because it's not something that I don't even think out in the civilian world. Like in high school, I was never talked to about engineering or mechanics or anything like that. And so you don't even think about that as a possibility of something that you want to do because you're not talked to about it as though it's an option. And
Yeah.
so it is very nice, I think, to see the shift and the change and seeing more women in this career field. Even if it's a small amount, that's a step forward to know that
Yeah.
they can actually do it and that it's an option.
I think that's actually, if I think about it now, you're 100% correct. Growing up, that was never like really presented to you. But I look now at my kids and they're given more options and they're
Oh,
given
yeah.
more like, this is open to anybody and vice versa. Boys are being told that they can do
Thank
things
you.
that traditionally, yeah.
Nursing and, all
Yeah.
these more traditionally feminine roles that we had, 20, 30 years ago there's this shift of everybody can do it. So,
Yeah.
keep your options open, and seeing STEM more everywhere and STEAM and all
Yes.
those kinds of programs, I think that helps a lot.
It does. So I'm going to kind of jump in. You have 2 kids.
Yes.
And the reason that I got to meet Diana is because Danny, one of our contributors, wrote an article about, I know I'm not going to say it correctly, but like things that you wish that special needs parents wish you knew. And I met you because you actually contributed to that. So tell me, if you don't mind, a little bit about, so you said that medical issues were the reason that you had to leave the service. Tell me a little bit about yourself, about your kids, just whatever you're comfortable sharing.
So mine started much later. It actually is because of having children that I developed a lot of my medical issues. And so my kids actually came first in the EFMP program, and us being
Gotcha.
familiar with that. My oldest son, initially, when he was born, had severe breathing issues. And so no ICU or anything like that. We were just at the doctors a lot
Yeah.
for what they then later diagnosed him with asthma.
Mm-hmm.
And so just if you ever, that is a roller coaster, especially if they're in daycare.
Yeah.
So they're, if they have asthma, any cold turns into a hospital or a doctor's visit.
Yeah.
It was a very rough first year of his life. My husband then deployed, and that's how Devin was born.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
He was our deployment baby. We were not, I think we thought we wanted them close. I don't know that we wanted them right on top of each
Yeah.
other.
It's funny how that happens sometimes.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes. My husband deployed with Colton, my oldest, when he was only 8 weeks old. He comes home and hello, Devin.
Yeah.
6 weeks later. So I had a
Yeah.
baby on the hip, and then we're pregnant. Devin unfortunately had the same exact issues when he was born, except more
Okay.
severe. He had, I want to say it was 15 hospitalizations in his first year of
Wow.
life. Because he was so young and coming out of the womb as a newborn with these breathing issues versus my oldest son, who kind of developed them over the first few months of his life,
Mm-hmm.
they were very concerned about all of the big medical issues that come along with breathing issues, especially with us being a mixed race family. So cystic fibrosis was on the
Yeah.
table, all of these things. And they finally ruled all that out and sent us down to Utah to a specialist down there, a pediatric pulmonologist, who diagnosed him first in his career with asthma, because they don't typically diagnose babies under a year with asthma, but he had
Okay.
severe asthma, adult medications,
Wow.
for almost 2 years of his life. That was a very long 2 years.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while all that's going on, I'm kind of falling apart a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't bounce back. Like I was uncomfortable and pain everywhere and achy. I had to have an emergency gallbladder surgery,
Oh
which I
no.
find out later is very common for women who have more than 2 kids back to back with no real break time, because your
Mm-hmm.
body just dumps all of
Yeah.
that pregnancy stuff, and it can just be overwhelming for your organs to try to handle. And so my gallbladder was taken out, and then immediately after my youngest son's birth, I had pancreas issues.
Ooh.
I I think like we all know what our organs are, but I'm like, what does my pancreas do? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing in there? I didn't do anything to you. That was my first, his first, he was 3 months old. So we're dealing with his breathing issues and hospitalizations. I had my first hospitalization in that time frame, for pancreatitis,
Oh.
severe pain, lots of other not fun stuff. And that went on for a year because I'm dealing with my newborn who's struggling with
Wow.
all his stuff. And so I don't want to say I was ignoring my issues. It was more, this is a priority. We need to get him well. I'm still active duty at this time. And so
Wow.
I'm working while we're managing and juggling a toddler and an infant who's in the hospital and work, and I'm not feeling good. And so it was a lot. It
Yeah.
was a lot.
That's a lot. It's
Um,
exhausting to even hear it. So
oh my
I can
gosh, yes.
imagine.
About a year after my first pancreatitis hospitalization and back and forth to the doctor for a variety of issues I was having throughout that year, he finally sent me to a specialist in the big city there, Boise, to just see if he could try to help me nail down what was going on. It was gastroenterologist. And this is what always kills me, even years later. I walk in and it's all older people. Like it's all like I am the only one that's like, are you waiting for someone to come in to sit with
Yeah.
them? And we do all the scans and the blood work and everything. And he sits me down and his whole face is just like, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Because he's like, I have never seen someone with a gallbladder as damaged and as bad as yours is. I think your gallbladder is the gallbladder of a 50-year-old, not
Wow.
a 20-something-year-old.
Yeah.
And so lots of medications to try to manage it, surgeries and everything. That went on for another year. So we're at the 2-year mark at this point. Thankfully, during that time frame with the medication, Devin, my youngest, finally getting diagnosed, his stuff kind of stabilized. And so we weren't managing his health, my health, and all the other adult stuff you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And so that went on for another year. And I finally got diagnosed. It's a rare disorder. It's called sphincter of Oddi dysfunction type 3. And it basically means my pancreas can't hold in and process the bile that we process
Mm-hmm.
through our bodies. And so it backs it up into there, kind of very similar to getting
Oh.
like gallstones and things like that with your
Yeah.
gallbladder. And because I didn't have a gallbladder and I didn't have a second organ to help manage the issues, my gallbladder started to deteriorate. And I actually had to end up having a portion of it taken out.
Wow.
And so I have personally had 22 surgeries and operations to try to correct the issues and try to help it. I had one final big surgery. They opened me all the way up to try to correct and clean everything up in there. And then my sweet doctor, who I'd been seeing for almost 2 years at that point, sat me down after about 6 months of recovery outside of that one. And his face, I was always reassuring him because his face just looked like you kicked his dog.
Oh, no.
And he's like, I'm so sorry, Diana. There's nothing else we can do for you.
Yeah.
We have done everything that we know medically how to do at this point for you. And unfortunately, we can only manage your symptoms at this point. This is probably going to be something that you have to live with for the rest of your life. And I was okay with it. This sounds so weird to say. My husband was devastated.
Oh.
We were done finally.
Yeah, I can understand that part of it.
There was no more surgeries. There was no more recoveries. There was no more hospital visits. It was okay. So I can live now, because being sick and having chronic illness is exhausting and frustrating. And there's a roller coaster of emotions and things you have to deal with having that kind of lifestyle. But there's a permanence in it. I can move on from this. I can start to plan now. I can start to live my life no matter how I choose to live it, but not around anything.
Yeah.
I'm just living my life now.
Yeah.
And so I was okay with it. But then it hit me. I didn't think about it in the doctor's office or maybe even that next week. I wasn't going to be able to stay in the Air Force anymore.
Yeah.
Like that. Because up to that point, you're on profiles. You're on a medical profile, and they basically say, okay, we're fine with the fact that you are figuring things out, and there is an expiration date. You're going to eventually get better. You're going to be able to take your PT test. You're going to be able to go back to your job. You're going to be able, there's an end point. When there's not an end point and there is this permanency of it, okay, thank you so much for your service, and now we no longer need you.
Yeah.
And so that was the only thing I mourned. That was the thing that it wasn't being sick. It wasn't I'm going to get teary.
No, it's okay.
It wasn't the permanency of being sick. It was, oh crap, I'm sick and I can't stay in the, this is what I always wanted to do. I didn't have a plan outside of the military. And so that hurt worse than being told this isn't going to get better.
That's understandable. Yeah. I interviewed another woman who's fantastic, and she had the same thing. It was very unexpected, and she was medically retired and she wasn't prepared for it. And she said that was worse than the mental toll it takes on you, because you just don't have a plan outside of that. No, and it's your identity. It's part of who you are.
That, going back into the reason why I joined, my dad was active duty.
Okay.
A lot of his family I'm fourth generation military.
Okay. Yeah.
And so my brother is in the Air Force. And so although this wasn't my plan leaving high school, it became my plan. It became the thing that I knew I wanted to do with my life. And even at such a young age, even in your young, 20s and stuff like that, it's a big deal, deciding, making that drive, like, okay, this is what I know I want to do now. I'm not farting around anymore. No more college classes or anything. And so that was being taken away. What now? And so that, I think, was the hardest part out of getting sick, was that. However, so then I'm out of the Air Force at that point, and now I'm home permanently with my kids. I'm living the, at-home lifestyle and kind of getting used to that and figuring out, what that means and everything. And now I'm noticing things about my oldest son.
Yeah.
I probably got phone calls backtracking probably almost weekly about him.
Yeah.
He wasn't behaving properly. He wasn't sharing with the other kids, the litany of things that goes wrong with a toddler. And you're working, like you're
Mhm.
working 12, 14 hours a day. And you're not ignoring the issues, but it's on the back burner because you have so much other stuff going on.
Well,
And
yeah.
so I'd go in, we'd have the meetings, I'd apologize. I'm sorry, little Johnny, that he pulled you down off the slide because you were taking too long.
Yeah.
And we just rolled with it though, and I'm out then, and he's 3.5 at this point, and you have that gut feeling. You
Mhm.
just know in your mom gut, this is not just typical toddler behavior. There's something going on.
Yeah.
And I must have emailed his pediatrician probably an exorbitant amount of times. He probably sort of told stories about me, I imagine, because I'm just that first time mom, is a worry ward about her son, and I just can't handle it. But I knew there was something.
Yeah.
And so my final straw was my husband had just gotten home from his second deployment, and he'd gotten, you get a little bit of extra money. And so he'd
Mhm.
gotten the boys golf clubs, another outdoor activity in Mountain Home that you can
Yeah.
do. And so they're out in the backyard and they're playing nicely together, both of my boys. And my youngest is such a perfectionist. He's lining up his shot, and he's taking 8 million years, I'm sure, in another toddler's mind to do this. And as I see him kind of take his swing back, I, in slow motion, watch my oldest child lift up his golf club. They're metal, they're not plastic, and just whack Devin right in
Ooh.
the head.
Ooh.
And I just slow motion, like you're just trying to get there as fast. And I see the goose egg forming,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's bawling his head off. And so he's my priority. And I'm getting him in the house and ice pack and everything. And then the blood boiling, are you kidding, what were you thinking, comes in. And so I rush outside, and he's golfing
Yeah.
like nothing happened, like everything is fine.
Mhm.
And I rush over to him, and I get down on my hands and knees, and I look him in the face, and I said, what were you thinking? You could have seriously hurt your brother. And he just matter-of-factly tells me he was taking too long to take his shot. And he goes to turn away from me, and I just grab him and I bawl my eyes out, because I'm thinking of all the daycare calls, all of
Mhm.
the behaviors and stuff, and why is no one listening?
Well,
And
I
so
yeah, I
no, go
think
ahead.
it's less about people not listening and more it's one, mom gut is a huge thing. We talk about it a
Oh
lot
yeah.
where like please don't ignore it, like, and be that mom that emails the doctor 7 million
Yes.
times, because that's okay. I mean,
Absolutely.
they will be annoyed by you, but you will get heard.
And
And then
maybe they'll just reassure you that everything's fine, or maybe they're actually going to hear you
yes.
and help.
Yes. And I think all I kept thinking of when I'm listening to you talk is just you were like in triage for like years of just
Oh
like
my
what's
gosh,
the
yeah.
most important thing I have to do right now,
100%.
and then move to the next most important thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all I could think of. And I mean, I feel for you because that's a lot.
It's
That's
a
a lot.
lot.
Yeah.
So I scoop both of them up, and I'm sure he still tells story probably to his colleagues about this. And I marched myself into the hospital. And that's not how it's done. You have to wait weeks to get in to see a military
Yeah.
doctor. And I park myself in the waiting room, and I stomp over to the window, this poor girl, and I said, I'm not leaving until he sees me. I am mortified by that behavior now. And so he comes out, and he's like, hi, Mrs. Loader, what can I do? And I said, look at his head. And he's like, okay, so why don't you come back to the office with me and we'll talk about it? Because I'm sure I'm scaring everyone in the waiting area, right?
Do what you got to do.
And he gives me an emergency referral to go see a psychiatrist,
Mm-hmm.
thank goodness, and bless that woman. She was a saint.
Yeah.
Because I get in the same day, because I'm bawling on the phone to her, like, this is everything. I'm like word vomiting on her receptionist, I'm sure. And so she puts me through to the doctor. And I was like, if you can come in 30 minutes, I will see you. And I'm like, thank you so much. And so I get down there, and I'm word vomiting. I'm telling her everything that's been going on the last few years and everything. And she stops me mid-sentence and she says, do you mind if I bring my nurse in here, just sit with him for a second? I just want to talk to you. And I said, sure. We walk out, and there's a two-way mirror. And she said, I don't think you understand what's going on. And I just wanted to kind of explain things to you, and then we're going to come up with a plan. And I have no idea what she's talking about, because in my mind, he has ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
It runs in my family. I have seen what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I'm familiar with that. And so I'm like, what is she building me up for? Like, just give me a referral to a good kid therapist, and, and she goes, so I just wanted you to understand that your son is autistic.
Wow. And just in like 20 minutes with him, she knew.
I said, no, he's not. And she's like, no, that is 100% what is going on with him. I cannot diagnose him with that. That is not, I don't have the authority to do that, but that is exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get you set up with referrals, and I'm going to give you information and books and pamphlets, but that is what's going on with your son. And everybody who's going to watch this is going to cringe when I say this next thing, because every time I tell this story, people laugh, and that's okay. The next words out of my mouth were, but he looks me in the eyes. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And she goes, so yes, that is one symptom that we see with autistic people. But that is not the only symptom, and that is not the end. And I'm like, this no.
Yeah.
No, that's not what, because the doctors, people would have seen, he's almost 4, like, in my head. And she was like, I understand it's overwhelming, and I'm going to give you I'm not going to leave you out to dry. She's like, I'm going to see you, I'm going to see him until I can get you into the right people. But I need you to understand that is what's going on with them.
Yeah.
I just sit there for a second, and I'm replaying all of those little moments, those quiet moments of watching him very neurodiversely lining up all of his toys,
Mm-hmm.
and pacing and playing by himself but next to other kids. And I just had that light bulb moment of, what if he is autistic?
Mm-hmm.
And so everything moves very quickly, surprisingly. I know the military is not and our medical, although amazing, and I am so appreciative of it, is very slow. We got in within a couple of weeks to a developmental pediatrician and a child therapist, and just all of these things fell into place. And so within 2 weeks of that initial appointment, we were in, and the developmental pediatrician just confirmed what we already knew at that point. And so he gives me a lot of the same information, a little bit different. And I pack Colton up, my oldest, in the car, and we're driving the hour back home to Mountain Home, and I just start crying.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my head, and at that moment, when you're so alone in the car and in your thoughts, I am the worst parent.
Yeah.
How did I not see this?
Mm-hmm.
I could have done so much better for him. And all of those what if thoughts just running through my brain. And then I look back in the mirror at one point, and he's humming to himself, happily playing
Mm-hmm.
with his toys. And at that moment, I'm just grateful in that instantaneous moment of looking at him, because I didn't see it, and the doctors didn't see it, and the nurses didn't see it, and the teachers and babysitters, and nobody saw it, but we see it now, and we can move forward.
Yeah.
We're going to help him.
Yeah.
We're going to help us be the parents he needs. And so in the span of an hour, I went from horrible, horrible mother to acceptance, and we got this.
That's great, though. That takes a lot longer for some people, so that's really good.
Because I've talked to a lot of therapists over the years with him, and they're always so surprised at how calm and how accepting and willing I am of anything they tell us to do. And I said, because it's going to help him.
Yeah.
I said, I know how hard it is for some parents, those dreams and moments and wishes in utero and holding their tiny baby in their arms. I said, but I had all of that, and I was active duty, and I missed so much of that. Mm-hmm. I said, now being home with him full time and seeing it and being in it and living it and being there with him, I can help him. Yeah. I can do that. As his mother, I can do that for him. I said, so it wasn't a sorrowful moment. It was I got this. I can do this.
So, I mean, I guess in a way you went from like serving the country, and I know that this sounds like really, it's a vastly different thing, but you really have to like serve particularly your son. I mean, what do you have to do kind of, not even necessarily on a daily basis, but I mean, do you have to advocate a lot?
Yes.
What do you do for him?
You know, he was younger. It's not, I don't want to say it's not as intensive, but there's a lot of very specific things you're doing. And so, you know, you're getting them into doctors, you're getting them into therapists, you're getting psychiatrists on board, ABA, if you think it's appropriate. And so, you know, I don't want to say we had it easy, but everything was kind of put in place for us because he was so young. He wasn't, you know, we weren't a lot older starting out that journey. And so now, as busy and as crazy as our life is with all of those things involved, it's easier than it was. Like, it's so much easier now than it was because we know so much more. We're so much more experienced parents than we were when we were in the beginning. Yeah. And we know all the resources, and we know all the advocate groups, and we know where to go to get help and everything. You almost feel like you're drowning initially because where do you even begin? Who do you call? What websites are the best to look at? And so now our lives look like 5 days a week therapy. We do up to 30 hours a week in home and in office. I know this is a touchy subject for a lot of people, and we did not decide to go this route until 2 years ago. He does do medication now too, to manage some of his symptoms. Because if anybody's familiar with autism, or even if you're not, I encourage you to read about it because you probably know someone or have a family member that knows someone. It's never just the diagnosis. It's all of the other things that come with it. So the severe anxiety, the depression, if that's there. And so there's layers to it. You know, the diagnosis is the beginning, and it's great because it gets you exactly where you need to be in terms of resources and help and getting insurance on board and all of that stuff. But that's just the beginning. So there's so many other things after that you have to help with. What if they have a learning disorder, which we have 2 for him? What if they have depression and anxiety? Okay, now we need to bring a therapist on board. And so, but getting that diagnosis was the first step in getting us where we're at now. And there's so many, I always call them our team because there's so many people that are in our lives every day, but I don't know where we'd be without them. You know, like I consider them family, and I'm sad because the majority of them are military, unfortunately. So we have a lot of people that transition in and out of our lives. And so I'm sad when they leave because they've been in our lives for so long and helped us get where we are now.
Yeah. So you talked of like advocacy groups and everything. Are you still a part of them, or do you help with any of them?
So initially, yes, I was very heavily, you know, you Google is your friend.
I know.
And so a lot of Googling, a lot of Facebook pages, and, you know, so many support groups and everything like that. I have backed off that a little bit because we have such a heavy outside schedule. Now I do help host and run a special needs women's support group. Okay. And so because another part of this is, for, like you said, you shift your focus when you get a diagnosis like this. Even with ADHD or a learning disability, so much of your focus becomes your kids and you forget about yourself in that equation. And so my focus for the support group was to remind women, especially because the majority of them are doing, the heavy lifting, so to speak, during the week and everything, that they need to take care of themselves. Your feelings are just as important. Your well-being, your health, everything depends on you. And so you need to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so for an hour every 2 weeks, that's all we do. And it's usually more like 2 hours. We never end on time. And it's just talking about your week, talking about yourself, talking about a challenge you're dealing with, recently. Majority of them are military. And so the added bonus I want to say in there is, it's not just your kids, your life and everything like that, but then you got to deal with the military aspect of it. So
I know.
Are you alone? Is your husband, your spouse, your significant other deployed? Are they GY? Are they on a long tour for a year? And so that's the added component of the support group is, tell us about what's going on. Did Johnny stuff toilet paper down the toilet again? Vent about it. Spend the next 20 minutes talking about it. Let's just, come on. So, it's just the day-to-day grind that we talk about. And then ourselves, our group leader is a fantastic advocate, and she spends a lot of that time after we're done getting all the week out, talking about us, making sure we're doing our self-care, making sure that we're taking our meds and drinking our water and eating the way we're supposed to. And so, you're spending a lot of that time getting out what you need to get, and then reminding yourself that you're just as important in that equation. Yeah.
So do you feel like your time in the military, your life is so different probably from before you had kids and, but do you feel like your time in the military in any way helped prepare you for not just a stay-at-home mom role, but really being an advocate for your kids and for yourself?
I'm going to pause for 1 second. I'm going to turn on the light and let the dog in so she'll stop barking at us. Hold on 1 second. The sun slowly went down as we were talking.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say yes. I feel like a majority of women and parents who are in this role are overwhelmed by the sheer number of things you have to do and remember. And when you're military, that's every day.
Yeah.
like the sheer number of things you have to remember when you're in the military is overwhelming. And so you learn to multitask. You learn to manage not just yourself, but your counterparts. You're always, falling forward. And so you're thinking about, when I get to my next rank, what am I going to do then? And so you're always in this mode of, what can I do? What can I do to help this situation? Mm-hmm. My coworkers, everybody around you, and not just that, and then the community, other people. And so absolutely it prepared me for this somewhat. Are you ever really prepared? And so I absolutely felt like that moment in the car where I went from panic mode and horrible self-doubt to acceptance. Like you said, that should have taken me a lot longer.
Yeah.
But I attribute being able to go into fix mode because that's how I lived my life for so long.
Yeah.
And it is a catch-22 though, because the reason why I started the support group, because I was one of those parents that forgot to take care of yourself. You're so focused on the mission that you forget that you're a part of that mission.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I did for years. Colton, Devin.
Yeah.
Husband. And where was Diana in there?
Yeah.
And she wasn't a part of the equation because everybody else needs to come first. I need to make sure that everybody's getting to their appointments and medications are getting taken and schedules are being followed. And so as much as I credit my, strength and everything to my time in the military, it makes you forget that it's okay to not be strong.
Yeah, that's a very I kind of laugh whenever even people still in the military say mission first, because I'm like, oh, I hate that term so much. But it's 100% accurate. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of what happens when you're married to or in the military yourself, and you adapt that in your life. But I think you're right. In some ways, it really helps you focus, because you're like, I can't go backwards. I can only, what do we keep doing? Forward moving. And I like how you said, it's community. It's, you're thinking about everyone else.
You could stop at just helping yourself, but when my time's done, so to speak, like, no, my son is never not going to be autistic. He is always going to have ADHD. I hope we don't always have to have the depression and anxiety as a factor for him, but those other things, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so when I'm done with my time in this world, so to speak, I want to leave it better than the way I found it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help other women feel like they have a voice, help other parents feel like they have a voice, mothers, caretakers, whoever is involved, and know that they're doing the best they can.
Yeah.
They're doing everything they can to advocate and make sure their child has exactly what they need. And if that's all I can do when I'm done, I'm okay with that.
That's awesome. Like I said, you just hope to leave it better for the next generation. All I kept thinking when you're talking is, I'm like, the military teaches you, whether you wanted to or not, to pivot a lot. And it's just a constant pivot. I have a child who's also, she's ADHD, and we started very, very young, similar to you, where she was diagnosed, not with ADHD very young, but some other things early on. And it's amazing, but it takes over your entire life, and you pivot, you figure it out, and you keep kind of moving forward. And gosh, well,
my mother-in-law is a special needs teacher. She's been doing it for 20 years. And she's like, I just don't understand how you are so calm and so focused. I said, because that's what he needs. Like, she was like, you don't understand. Like, I have parents that call me from sun up to sundown, asking for advice, I said, because they don't have that tools inside their tool chest to self-advocate, to remind themselves that they are strong enough to handle this, that they've got this, that it's not all on them, that they do have resources, because it's not readily available. I didn't know any of that when I first started. I had to learn all of that. On my own. There's no book. God, I wish there was a book. I wish there was a manual. I wish you had a diagnosis and they handed you this giant, like 4-inch binder of everything you're ever going to run into and all the resources and all the, questions answered. That's just not how it is. Most of the systems are overworked and overtired. And there's so many kids that are on the spectrum now, and so many kids that are being, thankfully, early diagnosed with ADHD and autism and learning disabilities, so they can get the help they need earlier, so they don't struggle so much later. But that means there has to be more people available. There has to be the doctors and the nurses and the psychiatrists and the therapists available for this, and it's just not available. And so you stumble a lot. You stumble around so much trying to figure it all out. And so I said, I get why they're overworked and overtired and exhausted and calling you, because I said, I had to do a lot of that, but not as much, I think, as if we would have been civilian. So the military recognizes that in our small population, we have a significant number of kids that are on the spectrum, that have ADHD, that have these learning disabilities. I said, they made a program just for that. They made a program to help us kind of weave and bob and weave inside of that world and try to figure things out, so you're not doing it all on your own, so that you have resources readily available. But when you're a civilian and you're doing it all, that is exhausting to me, to think about having no resources and nobody to turn to and nobody to ask questions to because you don't have the money or the funding or the resources in your area.
Yeah.
And we're military, so they're going to move us. If I ask for a better place for us where there's more advocacy and more resources, they're going to make that happen for our family. Can't say that about civilians. They just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
What if their spouse is working in the area for 20 something years? They can't just pick up and move and try to find a better area.
No.
So they're stuck in that school system or in that area with little to no resources and trying to figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
I at least have the military. I have people that get not only my stuff with our son, but the military stuff too. I've got so much support around me that it makes it easy for me to want to be supportive of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that you can count on the military to have a program for just about anything that you can think of. And yeah, I mean, I know that people get frustrated with the FMP, especially when you're moving and especially when you're moving overseas because it's a process. And I've done that. So I'm like, it's a process, but when you need it and when you need it for reasons like this, it's a fantastic program. It helps expedite things and make things so much easier. And so I'm so glad that you guys are getting so much benefit out of it because it's nice to hear good stories. All the time I hear a lot of negative stories. And so I'm like, and I'm sure that you have plenty, but I'm like, you know, it's nice to hear that the original kind of mission of it works.
I try to focus on the positive because like you said, the wait times, the lines, the paperwork, the I's and the T's you got to cross. It's tedious. We all know that.
Yeah.
But at least it's available to us. You know, like, would that be available to you in the civilian world if your husband was working or your spouse was working a different job?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. At least these programs, like you said, are available to us if we need them. And so we have access to them and we can say that versus our counterparts out in the civilian world.
Yeah. It's like all those memes that came out with people in 2020 that were like, I have to wait for things. The military's like, welcome. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I shared so many of those.
Yeah. Like we're like, huh. We've practiced for years for this. We got this. We're so good. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, I am so grateful I got to talk to you. I feel like I could probably talk to you forever. We would probably laugh a lot. But I know that you also, you write a little bit. Yes.
Yes.
Where can everybody find you?
Thank you. I am on Facebook right now. Okay. And so my Facebook page is a Special Life of Spoons.
Okay.
And so it's about all this. It's military, it's autism, it's anxiety, it's depression, it's chronic illness. It's all of this kind of stuff that I have to deal with day to day. And also just getting my voice out there on other sites too. So I'm on hopefully yours soon.
She will be, guys.
I am on Filter Free and a couple of other of the mom websites. And it's this stuff. It's talking about this. It's military. It's all of this stuff because I don't want you to feel alone. Because you're not. Yeah. We're all out there. We're just waiting for one Google or Facebook search away to find your people.
Well, and I know that that's really our whole mission at the Mom Collective is so people don't feel like they're alone and they feel like we're real people behind the scenes and that, you know, if one person, say Diana, can advocate, then I can do it. And so that's amazing. And I'm so excited to see what you write for us. And I'm so excited to see what you write for everywhere else. Cause I think that you have you have an amazing voice and a crazy story that people need to hear because it's just, and your ability to smile and laugh through all of it is awesome.
You have to,
great.
Like you have to get up every day and focus on not necessarily the positive, but I'm here. My kids are here. My husband's here. Whoever you've got, your dog, I've got 2 of them and they bring me just as much joy and just focus on that because there is so much negative, there's so much stuff that we can focus on the bad. And I'd rather focus on my kids and the good and my dogs and my husband and being able to be there for other people, like I'm getting up for that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Well, that's awesome. Well, guys, thank you, Diana, so much for meeting with me today. Like I said, it was a pleasure talking to you. I will make sure that we put all the links to everywhere you can find her right below this video. And make sure you go and check out her and see what she's up to. Make sure you check back on our site. She'll be published there within the next couple of months. And thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.